Lily, a big mazel tov on your bat mitzvah. And Melissa and David, big mazel tov on your daughter's bat mitzvah. And Emma and Tova and Emma, a great mazel tov on your sister's bat mitzvah. And Jessica and Hannah, Noah and Oliver, John, a big mazel tov on your cousins, your niece's bat mitzvah. Grandma Lee, I know you're probably watching from Evans Park. Big mazel tov on your granddaughter. It was great to be with you live yesterday at the park opposite Evans Park. And a big mazel tov to all the friends and family of Lily who are watching this streamed. Lily, I want to get to the heart of the matter. I want to ask us to think about what's the meaning that we make of the fact that your bat mitzvah, this beautiful, joyful day, takes place in the midst of a pandemic. After all, Lily, life is not just what happens to us. Life is very much about the meaning that we make of what happens to us. Before the service, we had a little bit of a family blessing, and your father, David, put it so eloquently. He said that you will live thousands and thousands of days, and they'll all be beautiful in their own way. But this day, the day of your bat mitzvah in the midst of a pandemic, that's just going to be a very richly generative day. This is a day you're going to talk to your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren about. So it is incumbent upon us to ask Lily, what is the meaning that we make of it? So, there was a great 20th century rabbi, one of the greatest. His name was Joseph Soloveitchik. And he was such a great rabbi, nobody called him Rabbi Soloveitchik. Everybody just called him the Rav. Kind of like nobody says LeBron James. They just say LeBron. So the Rav wrote this essay, a very powerful essay called Shlichut. The word Shlichut means a mission or a purpose. And what he wrote in Shlichut is that every person is born, created by God with a mission or a purpose. And the Rav puts it like this: the fact that you're born, when you're born, where you're born, in the circumstances in which you're born, and not some other time and place, means that you, Lily Goldstone, you have a purpose to make your world, your time, your place better. And the question is going to be, do you say yes or no to your mission? Now, it was only 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like a forever ago. But less than 2 weeks ago, when we read Megillat Esther, we confronted this exact question: do you say yes or do you say no to your mission? And the question was, would Esther say yes or no to her mission? The name Esther means hidden. And what was hidden about Esther was that she's a Jew. Here she is, a Jewish queen in Persia, when there's this terrible extermination decree. All the Jews are to be murdered, all their properties to be stolen. And here is a queen married to the king who is Jewish and nobody knows it. Does she step up and say, wait a minute, no. That's my people you're talking about. Stop it, don't do that. And at first, she doesn't want to do it. And Mordechai says to her, you got to do something. And she says, what can I do? What can I do? I can't do anything. And then Mordechai says to her something that is just so powerful. And what he says to her just reaches across the centuries and the continents. And it speaks to us today. He says to her, and this changes the game. This changes her mind. He says, Mi yodea im la'et kazot higat l'malchut. Who knows if it wasn't for just this moment, right here, right now, that you became the queen. In other words, Esther, in other words, Lily, you're where you are. Right here, right now. You're the queen of Persia. In this horrible time, you can do something. Maybe that's why God put you here, to do something. And that changes Esther's thinking. And she goes from no to her mission to yes to her mission, even though it's going to be dangerous. She says, okay, I'll go talk to the king, the Asher avadati avadati. And if I die doing it, I die. In other words, sometimes saying yes to your mission isn't easy. Sometimes saying yes to your mission is hard, and sometimes saying yes to your mission is self-sacrificing. Now, we see this, Lily, you know this. We see this every day in hospitals in every city in our country, where doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals are saying yes to their mission. And it's scary and it's dangerous. Now, before COVID-19, doctors and nurses and medical care professionals were already abundantly doing the most sacred work, healing life. We already didn't have enough words to thank them for that. And then came COVID-19, and for them to do their sacred work meant that some of them are themselves getting sick. They're infected by the very patients whose lives they're trying to save, and yet they continue to do that work. They're doing their mission at real risk to themselves and to their families. And just pause on that. The fact that they're doing that calls to mind, it evokes a really powerful speech, one of the most powerful speeches ever, given by Winston Churchill in 1940. Gave it to the House of Commons when the war against Hitler and the Third Reich was going very badly. England was losing, the Allies were losing. It seemed like the world was going to get overrun by Nazis. And Winston Churchill says to the House of Commons, "This is our darkest hour, and we need to turn our darkest hour into our finest hour." And this is the question, Lily, I want to ask you to think about. How do you turn this darkest hour into your finest hour? Now, doctors, nurses, medical care professionals, it's just happening. Their darkest hour is their finest hour. But how do you do that if you're 13? How do you do that if you just really wanted to have a regular bat mitzvah? You're super prepared, you're always prepared, you're misprepared for your bat mitzvah, and instead of the bat mitzvah that you prepared for, you have immediate family, empty pews, and everyone else watching online. How do you do it if you are older sisters or first cousins, and all of a sudden your routines are overturned, and all of a sudden you're home from school, and it could be indefinitely? How do you do it if your parents trying to run a family and do life, and you've got kids home from school every day, indefinitely? How do you do it if the way you used to do work, if you're still lucky enough to have a job, is done different, now you're doing it remotely? How do you do it if you're lonely and if you're alone? How do you do it if you're worried about where your food is coming from? How do you do it if you're worried about, are you going to still have a job? In short, when you have so much worry and need yourself, and all of us do, where do we find our Esther moment? Where do we find our shlichut? Where do we find our mission, and where do we find our purpose? How do we answer Churchill's call to turn the darkest hour into our finest hour? So I want to just give you one small example of what this could look like, Lily, and ask you to think about what your own version of this would be. What is your own version of Alfredo's? Alfredo's is a pizza restaurant in Lynn, Massachusetts. It's owned by a husband and wife pair named Thayer, T-H-A-E-R, and Sarah, no H, Demaidi, D-E-M-A-I-D-I. And Thayer and Sarah Demaidi have been running Alfredo's for years. And when the schools in Lynn shut down, and when word came out that people were losing their jobs, what the Demaidis decided to do was they were going to run Alfredo's more than ever, longer hours than ever, and they were just going to turn out pizza after pizza and offer pizzas for free to the community. And their message to the families of Lynn was, if you're waking up and it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home indefinitely, and you're wondering what are you going to feed your kids, and you're wondering how are you going to pay for it, and you're wondering what are you going to do, just come over to Alfredo's. And we've got all the free pizzas for you and your families. And they were asked, why? Why are you doing that? And they said, it was very simple. They said, everybody needs to give their gift now. The doctors and the nurses and the medical professionals, they can give their gift. What can we do? We're not doctors, we're not nurses, we're not medical professionals. We make pizza. We do pizza. We are pizza. We love pizza. Pizza, that's our life. What we can do is give away pizza. That's what the Rav is talking about. Everybody, from the doctor in the ER to the pizza people, has a gift. Everybody has a mission. Everybody has a purpose. And the bad news is there's so much need in the world, and the good news is there's so much potential to make impact in the world. And so, Lily, I want to leave you with this question. What is your gift that you're going to give to the world? What is your gift? You don't have to answer it now. You have till about noon to answer it. What is your gift that you're going to give to the world so that you can turn this darkest hour into our finest hour? I can tell you one thing for sure, Lily Goldstone. All of us here and all of us online, we believe in you. And we believe in the good that you can do for this world. And we believe that your finest hour is going to emerge from this darkness. Your finest hour is yet to come. Mazel tov, mazel tov.